Hi there, my name is Zoran. Today we will put the GitHub Copilot tool onto a real test. We will let it write some really complicated code for us. Copilot is GitHub's tool, AI-supported tool that is helping you write pieces of code. It is analyzing your code and other pieces of input and trying to guess what comes next in your code base. It tries to complete a statement, a line of code, or an entire block of code. You will see how that works in practice when we start developing the demo. This is the sample application, which is modeling a bookstore. It can display a list of books, each book authored by a certain person. This is the state of the application, but that is the state of the application at the end of the demo, not at the beginning. At the beginning, we have nothing in the database. And a technical request is to populate the development database with test data and to develop that using the Copilot tool to help us. This is the code. This class, book, is modeling obviously the book. It is supporting persistence using Entity Framework Core, so this project is using Entity Framework. And as you can see, the author is optional. In the database, some books will have null author. And this is the person class, which is used to model authors. Observe that the last name is also optional. It could be null, it could be missing in the database. Notice that the Copilot tool is active on my copy of Visual Studio Code, and I will let it interfere with my coding through the entire video. There will be a ton of code, and get ready. I'm going to show you every single line of it. It's important because I want you to see how Copilot is reacting in different situations. Sometimes it will generate a bug. Sometimes it will generate code that is missing the point. Sometimes it will generate code that is just right. I want you to see all those situations and to get used to them. If you're entirely new to Copilot, maybe this video will be too advanced for you. I have already published one introductory video on GitHub Copilot, and you can find it. This is the link, and there is the link in the description as well. So if you need an introduction to using GitHub Copilot, you can watch that video first and then get back here and continue watching this advanced coding session. This is the database context. When it comes to pre-populating the database, the first reaction of most programmers that use Entity Framework is to let onModel creating method do that for us. Another principle when seeding the database, especially when seeding it with a lot of data, is to use the DB context. Only decide when that will happen. You might introduce a separate seeding tool, or a simpler approach is to wait for the target page to be loaded and then to insert the data the first time the page is used, so that you seed the database transparently. Nobody will notice, but the data will just appear there. This is the page model for that page that is displaying books. I might just wait for the get method to be called and then transparently insert the test data on development. Well, that will be a complicated piece of work, especially because there is a variation. We don't want to insert anything in any environment that is not development. We solve that problem by injecting an interface that will do the work. So here is the iDataSeed interface. I want to let Copilot help me write this interface. Let's see. It is suggesting just an interface, iDataSeed, with the seed method. That's really not powerful enough. I want it better. I want it to be generic, to have a tContext generic type parameter. And look, Copilot is reading my mind better this time. I have hinted in the direction of what I expect, and the tool has caught up, and now it says, where the context is a DB context. Yes, I can only populate the database using a DB context, and the seed method will accept a context, a DB context, to use to seed the database. I will just rename this method seed. I prefer declarative naming style. Ensure data exists. This name is better, I think, because it is indicating idempotent behavior behind any implementation of this interface. Let's get back to the page model and use this. I want to inject this interface. Let's get to the getHTTP method handler. Copilot has already figured out what I want, and this is precisely what I want. I want to insert the data before doing any actual work, before querying the database. And now we come to the harder part. This call should do nothing if the environment is not development. That was the request, right? I also want an empty implementation of the interface so that we can use it in any place where we don't want any data to be seeded. This is the most general empty data seeding component that can exist. So we get to the composition root where we must set up this new service. Needless to say, Copilot already knows which service is missing. Let's continue and you will see what it can do, because now we are stepping to a proper implementation of the data seeding component for books and authors. I have prepared the CSV list with all those books and authors, but that puts pressure on Copilot. This is the data crunching problem this time. And really, this was the reason why I started recording this video. I want to show you how Copilot will cope with a complicated piece of transformation. The format is very simple: first name, last name, and the rest is the book's name. But there are special cases. In some cases, the last name will be empty. In some cases, both the first and last name will be empty, indicating that there is no author for the book. And some books will contain comma in their name, so technically everything behind the second comma is the title and it should not be split around any commas. Will Copilot be able to cope with this? An outright attempt will show us where we are. Ooh, I like this idea. Stop if there are books. Very good idea, I will remember that. But the rest is really not. This is not even syntactically correct. The person cannot be instantiated this way. It has a factory method. Also, it doesn't look like the tool has understood the concept of the missing data. Selecting the author, using single, no. Author could be null in the database, so no. This is really not the idea. You cannot let the AI tool write a feature for you. For a feature to be implemented, you must specify it. Where did I say anything about the missing data? Where did I specify the data format? Nowhere. So how can a tool, any tool, figure that out? By reading my mind? That's not really going to happen. Attempt number 2. Do the work in smaller steps. Even without using an AI code generation tool, that is a good idea. Don't do the large part of work in a single method. Split the problem down into smaller sub-problems. Here, a method which only parses one CSV line. This time, this code looks interesting to me. I have an objection to extracting the title. This is really not correct. Then, I want to parse a sequence of CSV lines. Copilot is already guessing my idea, I think, though it has generated a method, and this time the code is 100% aligned with what I wanted. You see, just give Copilot a hint, and it will do the rest. Chances are very high that it will do the rest correctly. Alright, let's see how it copes with creating books. At first glance, this doesn't look like what I wanted. I will press Escape and start giving Copilot more guidance. Like a lower level method. Yes, this is it. Ensure authors exist, yes. And one more, ensure that a single author exists. This is really getting better. For a single author, this roughly looks good. It is looking for an existing author in the DB first. Only if not found, create and save the new one. I will accept this code. This is the only public method ensure data exists, and Copilot has got it right. Back to the composition root, we need to register the service depending on the environment. How do we do that? You see, at this point, Copilot has no idea what I want, and I have to hint it. There is one special kind of hints Copilot is understanding exceptionally well: comments. Write the comment and tell what you want. If development, I have to continue typing, it still doesn't understand. If development, use books data seed. I will just accept this piece of code and say that development of this feature is over. Now to the debugging. Well, that part will be funny because I'm not sure that all that code I just tab accepted is really correct. I'm pretty sure it's not. Alright, let's make a pause. If you liked the video so far and wish to help me spread the word about this video, please press the like button. That will help others discover it as well. Thank you very much. Watch other videos on my channel, subscribe to my channel, and you will receive notifications when new videos are published. Just feel free to subscribe and to watch other videos that I publish. So back to debugging. Honestly, I don't expect this much code to run the first time I start it. Ensuring that the author exists. The method must receive the flag whether the last name exists. It's interesting that it was me writing this method's signature, and Copilot didn't do much to warn me, just to test whether the last name is null or empty. It already knew that that test exists. It did it in the other method. But okay. Multiple inserts happen because of this first or default, and here Copilot didn't save me from this bug, but it is implementing the rest of the code right after I gave it a hint. Another bug. This is not how it tests whether the author is missing. I also remember that performance improvement it suggested. If there are any books, yes, you see, it's catching it up again. If there are any books, just don't do anything. Split must take everything beyond the second field as the title and not process it as CSV. I have deleted the data from the database, run it again, and this time it looks much better. I don't see any issues with these data. Why so many bugs? It's because I have stepped away from my usual incremental coding style. I might make every single one of these bugs, but I would certainly find every bug within a minute or two from the moment when I make it. And that makes bug fixing much simpler because, again, if you run the application on the secondary monitor during development, chances are very high that you will capture the bug right away, and the bug will be in the very last line you wrote. So there will be no context switching. You won't have to remember or to think, what could have gone wrong? Why is this happening? It's because of the last couple of lines I made. That is the incremental coding style. If you want to learn more about incremental coding, there is the entire video about it I made, which is showing you that powerful technique, which is saving you from long debugging sessions or even worse, from situations when you don't even discover the bug. This completes the session about GitHub Copilot. We have applied it to a very complicated, analytical, algorithmic, if you like, piece of code. And so the tool was making certain mistakes, but I have let it do that. If I made progress in smaller steps by splitting into smaller functions, I bet it will figure it right every single time, as it did whenever I did split the problem into sub-problems. That is giving you a guidance how to use it effectively. And when all fails, write the comment. Specify your expectations in a comment. Copilot will read that, and that will affect the code it generates next. Alright, thank you for staying with me. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and come back to new videos when they appear. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.